Hi, everyone. Thanks for swinging by. We thought we'd do things a little differently. Instead of having one person ask questions, we're going to ask each other questions and leave a lot of time at the end for a Q&A. Does that sound good? Okay. My first question is actually for the audience. Who here has read a graphic novel or comic in the past year? Raise your hand.
Wow, that's great. We have a room full of comic book lovers.
Follow-up question. Who here, of those comics or graphic novels you've read, were they published in India or by an Indian author? Okay. There's a bookstore on campus here. I want everyone to remedy the situation. We're going to talk about the industry first.
Yes.
And I think the most important aspect of the industry is you, the readers. And for us as creators, it's very important to get that support. So read graphic novels, but also support authors here in India, whether it's us or others. I think it's a very important aspect. We need that readership so we can prove to publishing houses that people like graphic novels, so we can create more graphic novels. But Preeti, can you tell me a little bit more? What are some of the big things in the industry that's shaping the content you do?
So for us at Amar Chitra Katha, Varud, it's a very beautiful space to be in because we are a heritage brand. We are 56 years old. I always like to say that I am the current CEO of Amar Chitra Katha because there were many before me and there will be many after me as well. So it's a twofold mission for us. We have this amazing, amazing treasure trove of comics that our founder, Mr. Anand Pai, created and left us. So one part of our mission is to protect that and make sure that it's still being consumed, still being read. And the second part is to take that agenda forward. Because we don't want to be a nostalgia brand. We are very happy if adults also read, but we don't want to be read and enjoyed only by people in their 40s and 50s. It's very important that today's generation of readers connects with ACK, connects with our comics, because otherwise in 20 years the story is over, right? And so with keeping that in mind, there's a lot of changes that we are doing, whether it's our digital strategy, the way we are telling our stories, the kind of stories we are telling, the way the art has evolved. And necessarily it has to do that. We can't expect a kid growing up in 2023 watching a Marvel Avengers movie to then enjoy something which was made in 1975, right? You've got to give them something that will appeal to them. Attention spans are shorter, so shorter story arcs. All of these things are guiding our strategy, and we're happy to report that we are having really good growth in revenue as well. Yeah, so
amazing.
Yeah. So I have a question. I have a question for both of you. That you had a story to tell, right? You had stories that you heard from your grandfather, and you wanted to tell that story. So why did you choose a graphic novel as the format? Because it's not an easy format to work with, right?
Not at all. It's definitely a lot of hard work that goes into making a graphic novel. It took us about 2 years to make Chhotu. But I think both of us growing up always read comics and always found that as a great medium to tell a story. And also the target audience we had was for 13 to about 40 years old. So we wanted it to be interesting, so and also relatable a little bit. So that's why we chose graphic novels as our medium to tell the story. And it was great.
Perfect answer. For me, it was, she is so talented that I just wanted to work with her. So full disclosure, we're both co-authors and cousins. So the story of Chhotu actually came the story of our grandparents.
Yeah.
Growing up in Chandni Chowk in 1947. And can I do a shameless plug? I think we actually have a trailer prepared that we can play very quickly.
Let's watch it.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom. Brave enough and wise enough to grasp this opportunity and accept the challenge of the future.
I think it's very easy to see that with a graphic novel or a comic, you get the best of both worlds. You get the text, but you also get these amazing visuals. And for us, we spent so much time diving through archives
Yeah.
of 1947 to make those pictures a very important aspect. So a lot of the art that Ayushi drew is inspired by real photography
Yeah.
and archival footage of the time.
Yeah, even like the frames are almost exactly what the pictures were, because it's I didn't want to imagine that. I think I had to pay respect to the actual events, so that's why I created those frames, but with our characters in them. So yeah, it was definitely a great experience to research. You have to research a lot, I think, when writing a historical fiction. So that goes, even with, I think, any of the comics you do, I'm sure there's a lot of research involved.
Absolutely. So it's definitely for every ACK, it goes through at least 18 months to 24 months of research. And we're very, very mindful of it because Amar Chitra Katha has that real stamp of authenticity and credibility for an Indian parent. So when they're buying an ACK, they know they are buying into something which is very credible. So we've got to hold on to that. And I feel that, it's really interesting because I think a comic book, like you're saying, is such a beautiful format because it's the most non-intimidating format of them all, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to look at your story and translate it into a regular long-form book, it would probably be a 200-page book, and you'd probably be able to read, most readers would probably read 10 or 20% of it and put it away. But when it's in a graphic novel, a comic book form, it's just so exciting to read. Mm-hmm. And from a child's perspective, I think one of the biggest benefits of a comic book is that confidence that you get of completing a book.
Yeah.
You know, that I finished this, I completed the story, of knowing a story from start to end. And that confidence is something that helps develop a love for reading at a broader level. Because when you start getting into the world of stories, you start enjoying it. So whether it's a reluctant reader, a late reader, a slow reader, all of those, for all those type of readers as well, nothing like a comic book. But I think during Uncle Pai's time, there was comic books, at least when I was growing up, and I'm sure many would identify with it, comic books were seen as frivolous, right? It was something which was finish your studies, and then if you do a good job, then you can read a comic, right? It was always an indulgence that was given to you as a reward almost.
Definitely. Like, I remember my parents always taking away, like, Archie's was something in the bathroom. I just had a wall full of Archie comics, and that was my space to actually read it. Yeah. But outside that, I don't think my parents ever appreciated comic books.
Yeah, so our parents and that generation probably looked at it as very frivolous. But then 40 years later, we have a whole generation of us who are now adults, who are parents, who are teachers, who are educationists, all of whom, everything we remember of Indian history and mythology, and I can speak for myself, comes from Amar Chitra Katha. I have no recollection of what I studied in my school textbooks. So then you realize that medium, the combination of words and visuals together, the kind of imprint it has on your brain is very, very powerful and very long-lasting. That's the magic when the two work together, the text and the images.
Yes. So, Varud, I have a question for you. How do you think it's different in the US and like comics?
Good question, actually.
Yeah. I know in the States right now, young adult graphic novels is one of the fastest growing genres. And for all the reasons you said, it helps with attention spans. People can jump into it. The diversity, the topics that they're able to cover is amazing. And it's also ripe for screen adaptation, right? Because a comic book is a storyboard already laid out.
Yeah, panel by panel, absolutely.
It's all there. And I think that's why I asked my first question, like, I need more people in India also to pick up these books so we can do the same here. With the strong readership, India has so much talent. We've taught at schools very recently, design, art schools, and just like the talent that is coming out of India, we wish to support that next wave.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
We're hoping that trend also continues here in India very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So I'm very curious to know, what has been the response to your book? Like, what kind of feedback have you received? What kind of letters have you received?
Amazing, actually. I think once we released it, I didn't expect it to do that well, but it did really well. In 2020, we actually won the won 2 awards at Comic Con for it. So best writer, and we got a silver for the best graphic novel.
Give a round of applause.
Yeah. So definitely a great response. Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing that a book like that was well appreciated. It's also funny though, because me and Ayushi, we talked about how it took us 2 years to finish this. We wanted to strangle each other at multiple points in this journey. And then we have people like, hey, we loved your book, we finished it in 30 minutes. I'm like, oh, wow.
And that's the beauty of a comic book, right? It takes so long to make it because each panel has to be patiently, painstakingly, first there is, so I'll take you through the process, right? So first, you have a concept in your head that, okay, I want to make a comic book on this topic. Then you write out, you do your research, you write out a synopsis. That synopsis gets converted into a script. That script then, it goes for sketching. So hand-drawn sketches are made. Those sketches are then inked. The inking is complete, then the coloring happens. And then finally, the text is put in the speech bubbles, right? And then the whole thing goes through multiple rounds of editing. So it's such a really panel by panel painstaking process.
Yeah.
But because of that, because of all the work that the creators do, the consumption is really fast. Yeah, you're able to finish it in. So the average reading time on our ACK and Tinkle apps, we have Amar Chitra Katha and Tinkle apps where our entire library is available, and the average reading time we have seen is 21 minutes, which is fabulous, right? To think that a person is coming onto the app and is staying on the app and spending 21 minutes at a time, which means they're able to actually read one comic cover to cover because that's how long it takes. So, so what is your opinion on digital reading of comics?
As in I haven't read much on digital apps. I think I've mostly bought books. So that's why I think it would be pretty interesting to convert our comics into digital now, because I think it is what is happening now currently to shift that.
Yeah, we were having a conversation about this. I think it requires the understanding of how a reader is going to consume it at the end of the process. Yes. If we think of it in the very traditional way of as a paper book, hardback book that's printed, there's one way of reading it, right? But if we have phones, tablets, you talked about readers actually casting it on the TV to read it.
That's right. So we've got some feedback from parents who say they cast the Amar Chitra Katha app on a large TV screen, and then the whole family reads a comic every day. Post-dinner. It's a post-dinner ritual in the family, and I think that's gorgeous. That's a beautiful way to consume a story together. It takes probably, again, 20 minutes to read together, but I think the magic would be in the conversation in that family that happens after reading that book together. And I think we are purists. As purists, obviously, we have this notion of curling up with a comic book on a couch with a cup of coffee, and we have this very romantic notion of how it should be done. But really, it's about storytelling, and I don't think we should be so married or attached to any kind. We should be agnostic to the format. Let people just read the way they want to read.
Yeah, I think it can be hard to let go of that physical, but it's important to understand, swipes are more important than turns.
On the Kindle app, for example, Varud, you have for comic books, you have a panel by panel loading, right? Which is, the whole page doesn't come up, it's one frame at a time. So it's really lovely experience because our artists put in so much effort in the details. Maybe in the print you might miss it and you'll appreciate this, but 100%. If you see like an ACK scene where there is some big battle happening and you want to see the swords, you want to see the earrings on the warriors, you can actually see all those details, which you probably can't actually in print. So all these formats have their respective benefits, and I find it funny when people say, oh, I love the smell of paper. I mean, you're not buying a book for the smell, right? You're buying a book for its story. So enjoy the story and, find something else to smell, really.
Yeah, I think I'm guilty of that myself.
Yeah, me too.
Definitely guilty of that.
I love the feel of a book.
And if there's anyone in the audience that actually wants to create comics or graphic novels, you're actually at an amazing time, because with the advent of, online publishing houses, a lot of independent comics that are coming out. It's actually a great way of putting your work out into the world.
Yeah,
and you can tap into how people consume it.
And not just that, I think the tools available, like softwares, Procreate and all, it's just become so user-friendly for you to actually create your own work. Exactly.
So we have 6 minutes. Can we take 1 or 2 questions in the audience? Wow, we have a lot.
Get to know all of you as well.
But we have a monitor here which is telling us 6 minutes and 2 seconds.
Yes.
So we just try and do 2 questions, I guess.
Can we do right here? Because you've been nodding along the entire time.
So
I love everything about digital art and graphic designing. But when I sit in front of my iPad trying to think of ideas, I just go blank. So what ideas to come up with, what to draw, how to draw, I have, like, can you help me with that?
Yeah, I think the first thing you can do is do something related to your life. Like, you know, a funny incident that happened in maybe one day before, and just draw that. Like, that can be a great start to storytelling. Just take inspiration from your own life and like funny, but I'm sure like the
That's actually my answer. I think the best way to start telling a story is find the story that's within you. Find something that you're passionate about, something that gives you inspiration, or a theme, like, you know, a social cause, something around you that really pushes and motivates you. I think that's the best way to start telling a story.
I don't know.
Yeah, should we
go
just
for it.
go ahead?
Yeah, sure.
So my question is that how did you figure out who would publish your graphic novel, and how did you go about it? I mean, I have a graphic novel waiting to be published, and I want to know how I can get it out there.
That's a great question. You want to take that?
And I want to know what happened. Did you get a lot of pushback? What was
Yeah.
the timeline? Like, get into it.
Yes.
Yeah, I can try to cram as many details in as quickly as possible, but step one is go stalk they're all walking around right now outside. So go to their websites, find their pictures, and literally go stalk them and start talking to them. Because every publishing house has editors here now. I don't think mine's in the room, so
Kumbh Mela, right?
Yeah.
Of
I mean, you can
literature,
also-
yeah.
yeah.
So on the
please.
Tinkle app, so if your graphic novel or comic book is meant for children, so 8 to 12 is the age group that we focus on, 7 to 12 actually. So if there's something that any of you have created which is for kids, and you would like to, we can do a digital release on the Tinkle app. We have a few Disney comics, we have a few indie artists who have given their work, and we are happy to host it digitally. We have readership across the world, so it's probably a good platform if any of you are interested.
I'd say just a little nuance to that. Comic printing, graphic novel printing is being impacted slightly, I think, especially with the paper crisis that's going on. So be ready for pushback in costing, be flexible when it comes to the financial return that you're expecting from us. I think graphic novels are definitely still a space of passion.
Also, another genuine problem, Varud, is digital piracy.
Yep.
Yeah, because we take all this trouble in creating, and then people just scan it, and there's a PDF floating around, or there's entire Google Drive folders with Tintin or Asterix or whatever coming our way. So,
Most of the great graphic novels are not available in the Indian market, so you go to Z Library and try to
Yeah.
download it.
We'll scrap that name from the record.
yeah. Piracy is wrong. It's illegal, it's unethical, please don't do it. That's my message to all of you. I think we can probably take another question, maybe two.
Yeah, sure.
We're going through them
Yeah,
pretty
go
fast.
for it.
Yeah.
Can I just say,
Yeah, please.
Yeah, sure.
We don't need microphones.
I have a really simple question. So I work in publishing, however, not graphic novel publishing. And I'm just wondering for both of you as people who are interested in the art and also who've published, what's up with this? Anyway, I am very new to reading Indian graphic novels. Of course, I grew up on Tinkle and I grew up on very visual books like the Children's World magazines or Cover Times or any of those. However, like I recently read Munnu, which is Malik Sajjad, and then I picked up your book. So I was just wondering if you had to give like a top 2 or top 3 list to readers who are entering the space, what would be graphic novels or perhaps magazines that you'd like to guide the reader towards? Indian, obviously.
Sarnath Banerjee is great. I think he writes a lot of stories related to Delhi life, and just he takes a lot of inspiration from life, so like the reality. So I think that's a great start to, and he's a little funny also, and meaningful at the same time. So I think I started reading. And then Appu Pen, I love Appu Pen. It's a little dark, his comics, and graphic novels, but I really enjoyed the art form.
And I would like to recommend, again, shameless plug, but we've just released a book called Buying a Song and Other Folktales, which is Amar Chitra Katha comic book of folktales from across different parts of the country. So there's folktales from Maharashtra, from Gujarat, from Ladakh, from Kerala, from the Andamans. And the beauty is that each of those folk tales is illustrated in a different style. The art is different for each and every of those stories. The art is also inspired by the local art forms, and it's a very beautiful book. And please check that out as well. We are producing new content every month on both ACK and Tinkle. So yeah, keep a lookout for those as well.
Read wide and read diverse.
Yeah.
I think move out of your genre when it comes to these stories, move out of the norm of authors. I think it's a very important thing, especially as a creator, to read exactly what everyone is putting out, not maybe even the mainstream.
Okay, I think one last question. There's 16 seconds to go.
Rapid fire.
Sorry, it's going to be a little bit long. I'm someone who's going into animation, and I'm someone who's always wanted to improve kind of the animation scene in India. I don't want India to be known for Chhotu, Chhota Bheem, Motu Patlu, etc., etc. And someone who wants to go into slightly more mature themes and more mature, in general, the feeling of it. So I wanted to ask, since I did see the novel that you are releasing, how did you guys get it to be famous? Because you are successful, right? So how did you get there? You're doing something new, you're successful. How did that happen?
Shamelessly running after people.
Yeah.
Go and talk to everyone. Send your books to just your target audience. Just try to find people who they are following and start sending your books and your content to them and let them share it to the world. Yeah, it was a very tough process, but...
Be shameless, I think, is the takeaway. Like, annoy people. It's okay. It's an email. It's
They
fine.
might reject it, it's okay.
So be shameless. On that very inspiring note, I think it's time to close the session. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for being a lovely audience.